Hello, my name is Edward Whitehead. I'm a Master of Science graduate student of the education program at the University of New England, and today I'm going to be talking to you about the writing process and some of the best practices that are highlighted in research. Today, we'll be specifically looking at clarifying the writing process. We will also examine why students struggle with writing. We will determine strategies to overcome these struggles and how to best motivate struggling and disenfranchised students. So first of all, what is the writing process? As defined by the Capella University's writing guidelines, we start with pre-writing, which is the process of analyzing your audience, determining your process in writing, limiting the scope of what you will cover, and generating potential content. Drafting is the process of making a case and structuring your evidence for that case. After that, a student will revise their work, putting themselves in the place of the reader, rethinking their approach and making changes that will improve their case. And then finally, polishing, which includes editing and proofreading to eliminate errors and improve the coherence and readability of their presentation. The recursive rather than linear nature of the writing process helps writers produce stronger, more focused work because it highlights connections and allows for movement between research and the phases. In this, writers can and should jump back and forth between steps and organically create pieces of writing rather than expect to be done after the first draft and feel pigeonholed. So why do some students struggle? MacLeod addresses writing anxiety as a type of anxiety associated with situations in which a person has difficulty during the writing process, despite having the required writing skills. One of the factors leading to writing anxiety is that the written material will be evaluated. Barrett's claim suggests that young writers are paralyzed for fear of messing up their work. And in my own personal experience, this has been validated. Students of whom have great ideas don't share them because they're fearing that they will come across as being stupid in class or that their contributions will not be appreciated. Evidence also suggests that teachers aren't preparing students for these tasks. According to the National Assessment of Educational Progress, they found that only 33% of the nation's 8th graders and 24% of 12th graders show proficient writing skills, and that 56% of 8th graders and 57% of 12th graders write only at a basic level. So how do we fix this? In Troy Hick's work, Crafting Digital Writing, he writes of these 3 models in which to study the craft of writing. The first is to view writing through lenses. When we help students get a feel for the setting, voice, tension, inner story, or recurring detail, we are helping them develop new lenses with which to revisit their own writing. By reading other texts with these lenses in mind, students can learn to reflect those aspects in their own writing and learn by seeing and then copying that in their own work. Troy Hicks also emphasizes slowing down, which means to take the time to analyze these lenses to ascertain the meaning behind them. For instance, what meaning does this particular element of the craft bring to you as a reader? Why does it matter, for instance, that a word is repeated or that a character is described in a certain manner? When writers begin to think intentionally about creating meaning in their readers' minds, they're beginning to master the craft of writing. Hicks also emphasizes on starting small, to teach students the individual components to writing craft and perfecting them one at a time. Teaching specific craft, whether it's through whole class lessons or individual conferences, shows students one particular way to write at a time so that each one is small enough to hold in their hands and own. We want them to take risks with their writing as the best writers do, and yet have the supports in place to help them understand when they've made a mistake. So with all this information, how do we implement these concepts? It is my theory that mentor texts and using them as the guide to writing is the best way to do this. Mentor texts are most powerful when students frequently revisit them throughout the writing process, and when teachers help them take lessons from writing exemplars. Using mentor texts as the standard of writing, students can use these texts to come back to and make sure that they're on track and learn to use them and use the themes or lenses that are being portrayed in them. Using short stories that have obvious themes are more manageable for students to read and are a good starting point for mentor texts. Students are used to being asked what is written, but asking them to recognize how a text is written is a shift for many of them. This shift is essential in meeting 3 of the 10 Common Core anchor standards for reading, starting with Standard 4, to interpret words and phrases as they are used in text, including determining technical, connotative, and figurative meanings, and analyze how specific word choices shape meaning or tone. Standard 5, analyze the structure of texts, including how specific sentences, paragraphs, and larger portions of the text relate to each other and the whole. Standard 6 assesses how point of view or purpose shapes the content and style of texts. And with these standards in mind, using the lens, starting small, theory and approach is a really good way of hitting these standards. All these standards ask readers to answer the same basic question: what did the writer do? In my English class at Thornton Academy, the teacher is having our students start off with short stories. We are going to have students read these stories with the guiding framework of lenses, slowing down and starting small, and we're going to have them built up to the point where they can write full-fledged pieces. These short stories will be good for my class because some of the students, or I should say most of the students, are largely unmotivated and need some kind of motivator to get them going in the right direction. Another way we are looking to motivate our students is having them pick some of the anchor texts, or mentor texts I should say, that they're going to be reading. Another technique that facilitates student choice in the classroom is the practice of letting the students decide which topics will be covered throughout the semester. While this approach may seem a little extreme to many teachers, it certainly provides an opportunity for students to develop a sense of empowerment in the classroom. Empowerment will lead to higher levels of motivation and engagement, and thus they will be able to draw more meaning from the texts themselves. So in conclusion, students need to be taught the finer points of crafting texts, and the best way to do so is through mentor texts that highlight the standard of which to write. Short stories act as snapshots of literature that hone in on broader writing elements, and through the employment of choice where possible, that will increase the motivation and engagement of our students. Once again, my name is Edward Whitehead, and thank you for watching.